The planet Delennis was a peaceful world, a place of soft winds, tall trees, and blue skies. The Velari, the aliens who lived here, had watched the stars for centuries, waiting for new life to reach out across the cosmos. They were a quiet, intelligent species, advanced in ways that humans could only dream of. They had no need for war. They believed in peace and harmony with the universe. The Velari had studied countless worlds, but they had never met another race like their own. The idea of first contact excited them. In the high towers of the Velari capital, Ambassador Callum stood, his eyes fixed on the large screen before him. The stars outside the windows of the council room glittered like diamonds. The council members around him spoke in hushed tones, their voices filled with a mix of anticipation and concern. A small fleet of Velari ships hovered nearby, ready to respond to any new information. Callum's fingers danced across the console, bringing up the latest data from their deep space scanners. He had been waiting for weeks to hear from the unknown signal they had intercepted from deep space. "This is it," Callum said softly to himself. The ship was coming. It had entered the system. He felt a shiver of excitement run through him, but it was mixed with caution. They had never encountered a ship like this before. The ship was large, uncomfortably large. The scans showed strange patterns, odd frequencies, and what appeared to be signs of old damage. It was built like no other ship the Velari had ever seen. Its hull was rough and jagged, as though it had been pieced together from different parts of other ships. There were no smooth lines or curves, no elegant designs. This was not a ship that spoke of beauty and grace. This was a monster. Callum had to admit there was something unsettling about it. The ship looked as though it had been through battle after battle, scared and battered. The Velari had never been in a war. They were a peaceful people, always seeking to understand, never to conquer. "Are we sure it's from another species?" one of the council members asked. The voice was full of doubt. "It looks like it could be some kind of weapon." "It is a ship," Callum said firmly, "but it's unlike anything we have seen before. I believe it is from the humans of Earth." Humans. The word echoed through the room. Some of the council members had heard stories, but none had ever met a human. Some thought they were just a myth, a race lost to time. "Yes," Callum continued, "the humans are known for their strength and their ability to survive in the harshest conditions. They have a history of conflict, but they also have a strong desire for peace. This ship, as strange as it is proof that they are coming to us, to make contact." "But why come in such a ship?" another council member asked. "It's terrifying." Callum sighed. Perhaps it is a sign of their past. They are a young species, still learning, but they must be approached with care. We have to show them that we mean no harm. We must show them that we are here to understand, not to fight. The room grew silent as the council members considered Callum's words. The Velari had spent centuries trying to teach others the value of peace, but this ship, this was different. They had never seen a ship so large, so dangerous looking, and yet it was coming toward them. Callum turned back to the screen, watching as the ship slowly approached Delennis. It was time. The Velari would soon meet the humans, and they would have to decide what kind of world they would build together. Aboard the Kras Goliath Commander J1 sat in the command chair, his eyes focused on the vast blackness of space. The stars seemed endless, stretching far beyond what the human eye could see. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound breaking the silence, but J1's mind was not on the quiet. He was thinking about what lay ahead. Behind him, the crew of the Goliath moved swiftly, their work steady and precise. They were human, young, and eager for this moment, the first contact with an alien species. But J1 knew the weight of this mission. It was not just a chance to meet new life. It was a test for humanity. Earth had been through wars, famine, and disease. Now, after years of rebuilding and peace, Earth was finally ready to show itself to the universe. "Commander J1, the Velari ships are in range," said Lieutenant Bo Kyung from the communication station. Her voice was calm, but Jae-hwan could hear the slight edge of tension in her words. It was a nervous excitement, shared by everyone on board. "Understood," Jae-hwan replied, sitting up straighter in his chair. "Prepare the communication systems. We're ready to make contact." Bo-kyung's fingers flew over the console. On the large screen in front of them, the Velari ships appeared as tiny dots in the distance, but Jae-hwan knew those dots represented something important. The first step into the unknown. The Goliath asterisk, with its massive steel body and weapons, was not a ship built for peace. It was designed for war. But Earth had chosen this ship for this mission. They had to show strength, show that humanity could stand on its own. As the ship closed the distance, Jae-hwan couldn't help but feel a small knot in his stomach. Would the Velari be scared? Would they see the Goliath asterisk as a threat, a weapon ready to strike? Would they reject humanity before they even had a chance to speak? Bo-kyung's voice broke through his thoughts. The Velari have sent a message. They are requesting a parley. They want to speak. Jae-hwan nodded. "Open the line." The screen in front of them flickered, and a figure appeared, an alien, unlike anything Jae-hwan had seen before. The Velari were tall, with pale skin that shimmered faintly, and large eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Their faces were smooth and expressionless, giving them an air of calmness and control. "Commander Jae-hwan of the Earth vessel KRS Goliath *, we are Ambassador Callum of the Velari," the figure said, its voice calm and soothing. "We greet you, humans, with peace. We request that you approach Dalinus with caution and respect." Jae-hwan took a deep breath. It was finally happening. The first words of contact had been spoken. He straightened his uniform and looked directly at Callum's image. "We come in peace," Jae-hwan said, his voice steady. "We are humanity. We seek only to learn and to understand. We are not here to fight." Callum's large eyes blinked slowly, as though weighing Jae-hwan's words. Then, after a long pause, the Velari ambassador nodded. "We understand," Callum replied. "But we ask again, why come in such a ship? A vessel like yours. It carries the scars of battle. We have no such history. It is strange to us." Jae-hwan took a moment before responding. "This ship was built for protection. We have faced dangers before. The Goliath asterisk represents the strength of humanity. But we are not here to fight. We are here to make peace." The silence on the screen seemed to stretch for a long time. Jae-hwan could almost feel the weight of Callum's gaze. Finally, the Velari ambassador spoke again. "Then come closer. We will meet you. But we ask that you show no sign of aggression. The future of our worlds depends on this meeting." Jae-hwan nodded. "We will approach carefully. We seek understanding, not war." As the message ended, Jae-hwan exhaled slowly. The journey had only just begun. The Goliath asterisk would approach Dalinus, but the true test was still ahead. Would the Velari accept humanity as a friend? Or would they see the Goliath asterisk as just another threat from a violent species? The unknown loomed large, but Jae-hwan knew one thing for certain. Humanity had come this far, and now it was time to prove they could live in peace. The KRS Goliath asterisk moved slowly toward the planet Dalinus, its massive body cutting through the darkness of space. The Velari ships had moved aside, creating a clear path for the human ship to approach the planet's atmosphere. From the windows of the command bridge, Jae-hwan could see Dalinus growing larger, its lush green landscape a sharp contrast to the cold, metal world of the Goliath asterisk. But despite the calm beauty of the planet, Jae-hwan felt uneasy. The Velari had already shown their willingness to speak, but he could feel the tension in the air. He had watched their faces carefully during the communication. Their expressions were unreadable, but their eyes had told a different story. There was something behind those eyes, a quiet fear, and that fear was growing stronger with each passing second. On the bridge, The crew was quiet, each person focused on their work. But Jae-hwan could sense that they, too, felt the weight of the moment. They were not just entering another system. They were entering history, but this was not just about the humans making contact. It was about whether the Velari would trust them. Lieutenant Bo-kyung stood at her station, her fingers hovering over the console. She had been working with the Velari communication system for hours now, translating their language, trying to understand the nuances of their speech. The Velari were different from humans. Their minds worked in strange patterns, and their language was rich with meaning, a complex web of symbols that didn't always translate easily into human words. Bo-kyung had done her best to prepare for this moment, but even she could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Commander," she said softly, glancing at Jae-hwan, "the Velari ships, they're moving away. They're not just moving aside anymore, they're pulling back." Jae-hwan frowned. He stood up and walked over to Bo-kyung's station. "What do you mean? They're not in position anymore." "Not just that," Bo-kyung replied. "It looks like they're retreating to a safe distance. They're still watching us. But they're afraid." Jae-hwan turned to face the view of Delenis. His mind raced. The Velari had greeted them with peace, but now their actions spoke of fear. Was it the Goliath asterisk? Was it the way the ship looked, like a beast of war? Or was it something else? The Goliath asterisk was not a ship built for peace, and he knew that its appearance alone might be enough to scare the Velari. "We've made contact," Jae-hwan said, his voice firm. "They know we come in peace. They need to understand that we are not here to fight." But deep inside, he knew that trust was not so easily won. The Velari had been a peaceful species for centuries, living in harmony with each other and their world. They had no experience with war, no need to prepare for conflict. To them, the Goliath asterisk was a monster, a machine built for destruction. They had no way of knowing that the humans inside it were seeking only peace. Bo-kyung turned back to her console, trying to reach the Velari again. "I'm trying to get a message through," she said, "but their communications are not responding as they should. It's almost like they've shut us out." Jae-hwan took a deep breath. The situation was growing more tense with each passing moment. He had known that making first contact would be difficult, but this uncertainty felt like a storm on the horizon. He couldn't afford to let fear take hold. He had to act. "Open a line to the Velari," he ordered. "Tell them we are still coming in peace. We will not harm them." Bo-kyung nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. After a few moments, the screen flickered to life, showing Callum's image once again. The Velari ambassador looked calm, but his eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "Commander Jae-hwan," Callum said, his voice steady but distant, "we have decided to delay your arrival. We ask that you remain at a safe distance for now. Our people are not ready. There is uncertainty among us." Jae-hwan's heart sank. This was not the welcome he had hoped for, but he could not give up. "Ambassador Callum," he said, his voice steady, "we understand your caution. But please know, we only wish to meet in peace. We do not come as enemies. We are here to learn." Callum's eyes flickered. "We will consider your words," he said slowly. "But you must wait. We are not ready." The line went silent. Jae-hwan exhaled deeply, knowing this was only the beginning of the struggle for trust. The humans had to show the Velari that they could be allies, not monsters. But the road ahead was unclear. The hours passed slowly on the Goliath asterisk. The tension on the bridge was thick, with every crew member wondering what would happen next. Jae-hwan stood near the viewport, looking out into the vastness of space. The Velari ships had retreated, keeping a careful distance. No new messages had come through. Everything felt still, too still. It was as though the entire universe was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Commander, we've received another transmission," Lieutenant Bo-kyung said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "It's from Ambassador Callum." Jae-won turned, his heart racing. This was it. They had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the Velari to decide whether they would take the next step. He quickly crossed the room and stood behind Bo-kyung, watching as she opened the communication link. The screen flickered to life, and Callum appeared once again. The Velari ambassador looked more serious than before, but there was no sign of fear in his expression. Instead, there was something else, something closer to curiosity. "Commander Jae-won," Callum said, his voice calm but firm, "we have discussed your request, and after careful consideration, we are willing to meet with you. But you must understand this is not without risk. We are still uncertain about your true intentions." Jae-won nodded, his hands clasped behind his back. "Ambassador Callum, we understand your concerns. We are not here to harm you or your people. We come to learn from you, to understand your ways. We ask only for peace." Callum's large eyes studied Jae-won, and for a moment, it felt as though the entire universe had stopped moving. Then, slowly, Callum nodded. "Very well. We will allow you to come closer. But you must promise to remain peaceful and respectful. Any sign of aggression will end this meeting immediately." "We promise," Jae-won said, his voice steady and sincere. "We come in peace." The line went silent, and Jae-won felt a wave of relief wash over him. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment humanity could prove itself as a peaceful species. He turned to Bo-kyung, a slight smile on his face. "Prepare the ship," he said. "We're moving in." As Bo-kyung began to relay the orders to the crew, Jae-won took a deep breath. It had been a long road to get here, but now they were about to make history. The Goliath slowly began to shift course, its engines humming softly as it changed direction. The massive ship moved carefully, knowing that every movement would be watched by the Velari. The Velari ships were still in the distance, their sleek forms watching like silent sentinels. Jae-won knew they were being watched closely. Every action would be scrutinized. There was no room for mistakes. The fate of the meeting, and perhaps the future of humanity's relationship with the Velari, depended on what happened next. "We're almost there," Bo-kyung said, her voice focused. "We'll be in their atmosphere in 10 minutes. Jae-won nodded. The time had come. As the Goliath neared the planet, the view outside the window became clearer. The rich, green landscapes of Delanis seemed to stretch endlessly, and in the distance, the shining towers of the Velari capital city were visible. It was beautiful, peaceful, and untouched by the scars of war. It was a world that had known nothing but peace for centuries. But Jae-won knew that peace could be fragile. The Velari had no experience with ships like the Goliath, and the humans had no experience with the kind of peaceful life the Velari lived. Their cultures were as different as night and day. And yet they both shared something important: the desire for survival, for peace, and for a better future. The Goliath entered the upper atmosphere of Delanis, its systems working perfectly as it glided toward the landing zone. Jae-won's heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment. They were about to meet face to face with the Velari. The real challenge would begin once they set foot on their world. He turned to Bo-kyung, his voice steady but filled with determination. "Let's make sure we show them who we really are." The Goliath finally landed on Delanis. The massive ship touched down gently on the grassy plains near the Velari capital, its engines humming to a quiet stop. For the first time since arriving in the Velari system, Jae-won felt a wave of calm wash over him. They had made it this far, but now the real test began. Would the Velari accept humanity, or would they see the Goliath as a monster, too dangerous to trust? On the bridge, the crew prepared for the next step. Jae-won's heart was still racing, but he knew they had no choice but to face what was coming. The door to the landing bay opened, revealing a path toward the waiting Villari delegation. The air outside was warm, fresh, and filled with the scent of flowers. It was a world that seemed to breathe peace, unlike the harsh, steel world of the Goliath asterisk. Jae-hwan and Lieutenant Bo-kyung led the crew as they walked down the ramp, stepping carefully onto the soft ground. As they walked, they saw the Villari standing in neat rows, their tall bodies glowing faintly in the sunlight. They wore flowing robes of white and silver, their faces calm, but their eyes filled with curiosity and caution. It was clear that they had never seen anything like the Goliath asterisk before. The ship's rough, battle-worn appearance was a stark contrast to the peaceful surroundings of Delenis. Ambassador Callum stood at the front of the group, his expression unreadable as he watched the humans approach. Jae-hwan stopped a few steps away from Callum, trying to read the Villari's eyes. They were wide and intelligent, but distant. They seemed to be waiting for something, a sign that would tell them whether the humans could be trusted. Callum spoke first, his voice deep and soft. "Welcome, humans. We have never met your kind before. Your ship, it is unlike any we have seen. It is a monster." Jae-hwan took a deep breath. He knew this moment would come. The Goliath asterisk was a warship designed for conflict, and the Villari had no experience with machines like it. He had to make them understand that the ship was not a symbol of aggression. It was a symbol of survival. "Ambassador Callum," Jae-hwan said, his voice steady, "we understand how our ship might look to you. It is not a ship built for peace. It was made in a time of war, when humanity had no choice but to defend itself. But we are here now, not to fight, but to understand." Callum's eyes studied Jae-hwan for a long time. The Villari ambassador didn't speak immediately. Instead, he motioned for the group to follow him, leading them toward the Villari city. As they walked, Jae-hwan noticed the stark difference between the two worlds. The city of the Villari was clean, bright, and filled with tall towers that seemed to reach toward the sky. There were no signs of war, no weapons, no signs of the violence that the Goliath asterisk had been built to protect against. The buildings were smooth and curved, made from materials that shimmered like glass. There were gardens everywhere, filled with strange, colorful plants that seemed to glow softly. The air was calm and clear, unlike the dusty, metallic air of the Goliath asterisk. As they entered the city, the Villari people watched them closely, their eyes wide with interest. Some of them seemed to stare at the humans in awe, while others remained distant, unsure of what to make of these strange visitors. Callum led them to a large hall, a building that looked like it had been made from the earth itself. It was open and airy, with tall windows that let in the soft light of the sun. Inside, the walls were covered with strange symbols and pictures, stories of the Villari people's history. "We are not a people who build ships like yours," Callum said, his voice quiet. "Our history has been one of peace. We have never needed to defend ourselves. We have never known war." Jae-hwan nodded. He had expected this. The Villari had no need for weapons, no need for ships like the Goliath asterisk. Their entire way of life was built around peace. It was clear now how different the Villari and humans were, but that didn't mean they couldn't understand each other. "We did not choose war," Jae-hwan said softly, "but we learned to survive. And now we come to you, to learn from your peace." Callum studied Jae-hwan for a long time, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps there is much we can learn from each other." Jae-hwan nodded. "We hope so." The first step had been taken. Now, the humans and the Villari would have to find a way to bridge the gap between their two very different worlds. It would not be easy, but for the first time since their arrival, Jae-hwan felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The following days on Delenis were filled with meetings and discussions. The humans stayed in a grand building provided by the Villari, a place that seemed to float gently above the ground, surrounded by gardens and peaceful streams. It was hard for Jae-won to forget how different the Velari world was from Earth. Their technology was advanced, but it was built for harmony, not conflict. The humans, however, had learned to survive through struggle, a fact that seemed to be difficult for the Velari to understand. Jae-won spent most of his time meeting with Callum and other Velari leaders. Despite their careful words, there was still an air of suspicion. The Velari would ask about Earth's history, about the wars, the weapons, the pain. It was clear that they couldn't understand how a species that had known such violence could offer peace. Callum would often look at the Goliath in the distance, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "We cannot help but wonder," Callum said one evening, his voice low, "how long you can maintain your peace, knowing what your past holds. Your people have fought wars against each other. How can we trust that your peace will last?" Jae-won thought carefully before answering. "It's true that humanity has had a violent history, but we have learned that fighting destroys everything. We are trying to change. We want to live in peace, not war." Callum nodded slowly, his face thoughtful. "I can understand the words, Commander, but not the meaning. You say you want peace, but you brought a warship with you. We cannot forget what we see." Jae-won knew this moment was coming. The Goliath was a symbol of survival, but to the Velari, it was a symbol of violence. It was a wall between the two species that had to be torn down before any real progress could be made. Meanwhile, back on the Goliath, the crew was becoming restless. They had been on the planet for days, and tensions were rising. Lieutenant Bo-kyung, who had been working with the Velari communications team, noticed that the Velari were beginning to pull back. Their messages had become shorter, less welcoming. "They're starting to retreat, Commander," Bo-kyung said one evening after receiving a message from the Velari. "I don't think they're as willing to cooperate as they once were." Jae-won frowned. The signs of distrust were growing clearer with each passing hour. "They're scared," he muttered. "And who can blame them? Our ship looks like a weapon, not a messenger of peace." He knew they had to do something fast before the Velari pulled back completely. If they didn't fix the situation soon, all the hard work they'd put into the mission would be lost. The next day, Jae-won stood with Callum in one of the large open gardens near the city. The Velari were calm, but there was still a hint of fear in their eyes. Jae-won could feel it. Callum turned to him, his face serious. "Commander, we cannot ignore the truth," Callum said. "Your ship, your history, they speak of violence. We have never needed such things. We fear that if we let you in, we may bring danger to our world." Jae-won felt a pang of frustration, but kept his voice steady. "I understand your fear. But our ship, the Goliath, it is a product of the past. It represents the humanity we were, not the humanity we are trying to become. We've learned from our mistakes. We no longer want war." Callum looked down for a moment, his eyes scanning the ground. Then, slowly, he met Jae-won's gaze. "I want to believe you," Callum said quietly. "But we are not warriors, Commander. We do not know how to fight. We cannot undo the damage that your ship represents." Jae-won took a deep breath, knowing this conversation could make or break their mission. "I understand that," he said, "and I don't want to pressure you. But if you only look at the Goliath, you'll miss the people inside. The people who want peace. I want to show you that humanity is not just its past. We are more than that." Callum seemed to consider this for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Perhaps we can find a way forward," Callum said. "But I warn you, Commander, if we see even the slightest hint of aggression, we will turn away. We have no place for violence here." Jae-won nodded. "You have my word, Ambassador. We will not bring violence. We are here for peace." As Jae-won watched Callum leave, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The Velari had not closed the door completely. There was still a chance, but the next steps would be even harder than before. If they were going to make this work, they would need to prove their intentions, and fast. The tension in the air was thick, and time was running out. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments and tense conversations. The Velari had agreed to let the humans stay on Delenis, but there was still a wall between them. Jae-hwan could feel it every time he walked through the city or met with Callum. The Velari were still cautious, unsure whether they could trust the humans. Jae-hwan spent most of his time working with Callum and the other Velari leaders, trying to convince them that the Goliath was not a threat. But the longer he stayed, the more he realized that the Velari didn't understand the world the humans had come from. They had no idea what it meant to live in constant fear of attack, to build ships like the Goliath just to survive. For them, violence was something foreign, something they couldn't even imagine. One evening, Jae-hwan sat alone in a quiet room in the Velari city, staring out at the peaceful landscape. The city was beautiful, filled with bright buildings and gardens, but it seemed so far removed from the reality the humans had faced back on Earth. The Velari didn't know what it was like to live in constant struggle. To them, peace was the only way of life. But for humans, peace had to be earned. It was something they had fought for. Suddenly, the door to the room opened, and Bo-kyung entered. She looked serious, her face tight with worry. "Commander," she said, walking over to his side. "There's something you need to see." Jae-hwan stood up quickly. "What is it?" "There's been an incident," she replied. "One of our crew members got too close to a Velari settlement." The Velari reacted badly. They thought the human was trying to harm them. Jae-hwan's heart sank. This was exactly what he had feared. The Velari were on edge, and any small mistake could cause a bigger problem. He followed Bo-kyung as she led him to the command center, where the situation was unfolding. On the screen, Jae-hwan saw a small group of humans and Velari facing each other in the middle of a peaceful garden. The human crew member was standing a few feet away from a group of Velari, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. But the Velari were backing away, their eyes wide with fear. Some of them were shaking, while others had their hands on what looked like weapons, though they were not drawn yet. The Velari leader in the group was speaking urgently in their language, and Bo-kyung quickly translated. "He says the human is too close. He says they feel threatened." Jae-hwan took a deep breath. "Tell our crew member to step back. Tell them to show no signs of aggression. If the Velari feel threatened, it will only make things worse." Bo-kyung relayed the message, and the human stepped back slowly, raising his hands higher to show he meant no harm. The Velari leader took a few steps forward, his eyes still wide with suspicion, but after a long moment, he lowered his hands and gave a slight nod. The tension in the air was thick. Jae-hwan could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. This was the test. One small mistake, and everything they had worked for could fall apart. After what felt like hours, the Velari leader spoke again. This time, his voice was softer, though still cautious. "You are not the same as your ship," he said, "but we are still afraid." Jae-hwan's heart raced. The Velari were still afraid. They didn't fully trust them, but at least they weren't rejecting them outright. This was a small victory. He turned to Bo-kyung. "Tell our crew member to stay calm. We need to show them we are not a threat. No sudden movements." Bo-kyung nodded and relayed the order. Slowly, the Velari began to relax, though their eyes were still filled with uncertainty. The human crew member remained still, his hands lowered to his sides as a sign of peace. The situation was tense, but at least it wasn't spiraling out of control. Jae-hwan watched the screen, his mind racing. The Velari were watching them closely. The humans had no choice but to prove they were different from the monsters the Velari feared. After what seemed like an eternity, the Velari leader spoke again, this time with a small smile. "Perhaps," he said, "you do not wish to harm us. But we must be careful. We have lived without conflict for so long. We do not know how to trust those who have fought. Jae-hwan nodded. I understand, but we are here to learn. We are not like the past. We have changed. The Velari leader considered this for a long moment, then nodded. We will give you a chance, but you must prove that you can live without violence. Only then will we trust you. Jae-hwan sighed with relief. It wasn't a complete acceptance, but it was a step forward. The humans had passed the first test, but there were still many challenges ahead. The road to peace with the Velari would be long, but it had just begun. The next few days felt like a turning point for Jae-hwan and the crew of the Goliath *. The Velari, though still cautious, had begun to show small signs of trust. They agreed to let the humans work alongside them in their peaceful city, though they made it clear that any mistake would result in the humans being sent away. Jae-hwan was relieved that the Velari were not turning them away completely, but he knew they still had a long way to go. The Velari had lived without war for so long, they couldn't understand the need for defense. They didn't know how to trust a people who had once been so violent. Each day, Jae-hwan and his crew tried to prove that they were different. They worked with the Velari to help repair their equipment, showing them that the humans could be useful allies. The Goliath was still a powerful warship, but the humans aboard it were showing that they wanted peace, not conflict. One day, Jae-hwan was walking through the city with Callum. The Velari ambassador had agreed to show him a part of the city that few outsiders had ever seen, a large garden filled with strange, glowing plants. It was quiet and peaceful, the perfect place for a conversation. Callum looked at Jae-hwan as they walked. Your people are strange, Commander, he said, his voice thoughtful. You come from a world of conflict, and yet you wish to live in peace. It is hard for us to understand. Jae-hwan nodded. I know. It is not easy to explain. Our history is filled with war, but we have learned. We've learned that fighting only brings destruction. Now we want something different. We want to build something good. Callum stopped and looked at Jae-hwan, his eyes full of curiosity. And how do you know that this time, peace will last? Jae-hwan thought for a moment. Because we want it more than anything else. We don't want to go back to war. We don't want to make the same mistakes again. That's why we're here, to learn from you, to understand how you've kept peace for so long. Callum seemed to consider this for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps there is hope for your people after all. The two of them stood in the garden for a while, watching the strange plants glow softly in the dimming light. Jae-hwan felt a quiet sense of hope. This was just the beginning, but it felt like the first real step toward peace. The following day, a larger group of Velari and humans met to discuss further cooperation. Jae-hwan stood in front of the group, feeling the weight of the moment. The Velari had agreed to let the humans stay longer, but they still had a lot of doubts. The room was filled with tension, but also with a new sense of possibility. Callum stepped forward, his voice calm. We have decided to give you a chance, Commander Jae-hwan, but you must prove to us that your people can live without violence. You must show us that you can build a future of peace. Jae-hwan stood tall, his heart racing. This was the moment he had been waiting for. We will prove it, he said, his voice firm. We will do everything in our power to show you that we have changed. We want peace, not war. The Velari nodded, their expressions still cautious but open. This was the start of something new. They had not accepted the humans fully yet, but they had taken a step forward. And for Jae-hwan, that was enough. As the meeting came to an end, Jae-hwan walked outside with Callum. The sun was setting, casting a soft glow over the city. For the first time, Jae-hwan felt like there was hope for the future. The Goliath might be a ship of war, but it was now a symbol of something more, a symbol of humanity's desire for peace. We are just beginning, Jae-hwan said quietly. Callum nodded. Yes, but the path ahead is brighter now. Perhaps, one day, we can truly work together. Jaehoon smiled. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. They had come to Delennis with nothing but fear and suspicion between them. But now, there was hope. A new beginning was possible. And with it, the promise of a future where humanity and the Velari could coexist, together in peace.